I call this pre-meeting briefing of the Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD Board of Trustees to order at 6 p.m. on August 16, 2018. The purpose of this pre-meeting briefing is to conduct a briefing session with administrative staff regarding the posted agenda for the regular board meeting scheduled for 7 p.m. on August 16, 2018. For the record, let the record show that Tara Harbachik is present, John Matthews is present, Sally Derrick is present, Randy Shackman is present, Candace Valenzuela is present, Dr. John Chapman is present, and myself, Guillermo Ramos, is present. Who is absent is our President, Nancy Klein. Board members, is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
Ramos, I would move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you. I have a motion from Randy Shackman. Do I have a second? I have a second from John Matthews. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed to the motion, raise your hand. With a vote of 6 in favor and 0 opposed, the motion carries. Board members, do you have any questions regarding consent agenda items? Dr. Randy, Mr. Shackman?
I'm going to ask that we pull consent agenda item O. It's the information relating to the wealth equalization, the purchase. I think I clearly understood all the material we've been given, but with the issues involved with the recapture and Robin Hood being kind of a hot topic, I'd like for us to get a little bit of explanation into the meeting itself that will describe why we think it was the best option to choose number 3, and just to get that on the public record.
Okay. Any other items, board members, that you would like to pull? Dr. Chapman, are there any reports by administration?
Yes, sir. At this time, Ms. Tillman will provide a report to the Board of Trustees.
Thank you. This evening, I'd like to highlight 2 departments in the Business Services Division. This week, we recently received notification from TEA about our 2017-18 financial accountability ratings. The first rating is calculated using 15 financial indicators, such as administrative cost expenditures, the accuracy of the district's financial reporting to TEA, financial vulnerabilities of material weaknesses and internal controls as determined by our external auditors are just some examples of the indicators. CFB received the highest rating, A, superior, with a total of 100 points out of 100. So we want to recognize the hard work of Scott Roderick and our financial division on achieving this award. Another notification we received this week also in financial reporting came from the Association of School Business Officials. Each year we present our financial statements to this organization, and they undergo an extensive review and have to meet a higher level of criteria for financial reporting. Our 2017 financials were presented, and we received the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting. So we also want to commend Mr. Roderick and his staff on these accomplishments. Some other information we wanted to share on another division is our school nutrition services. This week, Dr. Chapman, myself, and David Finley welcome back our school nutrition services staff on Tuesday. They have an annual staff development to begin the year. They kick off that program with recognition from the prior year, and so we were able to hear some of the achievements that our staff accomplished. We actually had 11 employees receive a perfect attendance award. And by perfect attendance, this means you don't use up all your sick days, but you still, you were still there all other days. This was actually, they were there every day to feed our kids. These employees also, many of them did not miss any days years in a row. Most of them were multiple year award recipients, and that's very commendable that they're there every morning, most of them before our alarms go off, working to get those meals ready for our kids. We're very happy to see all those folks back. We also had 30 kitchens that were recognized for no lost time and no medical care that occurred in their kitchens. Kitchens are a #1 spot for accidents to occur within a school district, and we work very hard to make sure our staff are trained and are looking to be as safe as they can. In addition, we are rolling out some new initiatives in 2018-19 with our school nutrition department. This Friday, if you have an opportunity, stop by one of our campuses. We will be serving a free breakfast to all of our employees at those campuses. The intent is to build a positive relationship between our school nutrition department and our staff at the campuses. Also at that breakfast, they're going to be giving them a hero card to encourage our staff to eat in the cafeteria, and it's set an example for our kids of eating healthy, and their 20th meal will be free with these cards. So we're going to track that and then give them a meal once they've utilized that. Also in 2018-19, we're just announcing this, so nobody knows this yet, with the exception of Dr. Chapman knows. We are going to be feeding all of our first responders within CFB a free lunch to encourage our police and our first responders to go to our campuses, become more familiar with our campuses, and just be a presence. So anything we can do to get them on our campus on a daily basis, we're going to try to do. So we're going to start off with a free lunch every day. So we're going to be promoting that, but we wanted you to be the first ones to know. So as they ask, you'll know that that's going to be happening all year long. So we want to thank this department for all of their efforts to go above and beyond to be the best school nutrition department that we can have in the area. Thank you.
Report. Congratulations, Scott.
And that's just one thing that I wanted to mention. Guys, you know how difficult it is to get 100 points on these ratings, and not only have we done it once, but we've done it multiple times. So that just speaks highly of our financial department. So kudos to each and every one of you. Thank y'all so much. All right, Dr. Warnock.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. A few updates on the teaching and learning that happening in CFB, starting with the learning for our professional staff. We had our 2-week annual, 4th annual Learn More, Achieve More summer conference. We had over 85% of our professional staff choose to attend, over almost 11,000 sessions over the period of 2 weeks. So we had content area training on restorative discipline practices, compliance training that's required, counseling, social emotional learning, outreach, trauma-informed leadership. So a wide variety and choices for our staff to build their digital literacy skills, their content skills, and their pedagogy. So we've had very positive feedback, and we're excited about kicking off that summer learning for our staff. An update on our enrollment for signature programs. At this point, as of August 13th was the last track reporting date that we pulled. We have 1,179 students new to CFB that are coming for our signature programs, including our stellar programming, open enrollment, and our pre-K. So we'll have a clearer outlook on what our enrollment looks like. Probably by the end of the first week of school is our deadline to remove students who are no-shows. So, but at this point, we are we're tracking that closely. We continue to receive applications and requests daily. The second piece, an update on the Student Code of Conduct access. There will be a letter that's sent home in the first day packets that instructs parents on how to access that Student Code of Conduct, and then a letter of receipt also included in the information that students bring home in the first few days of school. We call it the first day packet, but you know, it doesn't mean the first day. It's in that first week. They'll bring that home and then be able to bring it back. So I'm going to make sure that our families know how to access that Student Code of Conduct information. And then finally, our biggest news, and we know that we remember what we hear first or last, so we're going to keep this at last. We had an update. Accountability ratings came out and were released. We are incredibly proud of the work of the school district academically. We had some of the highest academic growth in the region. We had an improvement of 9 points in the accountability system from 2017 to 2018. We have no schools that will be an improvement required. We have no schools that are on the priority education grant list, and we feel really proud of the work of the teachers and the principals at those campuses for all that they have done to move instruction and learning forward. We were contacted by the Commit organization, which is doing a lot of work to move educational outcomes in Dallas, in the Metroplex, to ask us what were the strategies that we were employing to share with other districts, because they were really impressed with the outcome. We've included an overview of the 2018 accountability system for each of you in a comparison to 2017. One thing that we're really excited about and thankful for is that the Commissioner of Education has promised us now. That means that there can be no change in the Commissioner of Education, no change from legislation, and we can't have a new governor that changes the Commissioner of Education. So if those three circumstances hold for this year, we've been promised that our accountability system is going to stay the same for the next 5 years, or until one of those things happens, the legislature changes or the commissioner changes. What that means, since 2011, we've had a change in our accountability system every single year. The metrics have changed, the targets changed, the test has changed, the student groups have changed. So we've really felt like we're standing on shifting sand. So to understand where we are with the accountability system and its holding for the next 5 years, we feel very confident about being able to move the work forward for students according to the guidelines that have been established. There have been 2 websites, and we want to make sure that our public knows about them and that you know about them as a board. One is at tea.texas.gov/A-F, and that is a series of short videos. They're little 1-minute videos that people can access to explain the different parts of the accountability system. While the ease of information is intended to be there for the public, that every campus has a letter grade or a number grade, how we got to that is very, very complicated, and those videos help to explain it. The second piece that we want to make sure that everybody knows about is a website called texasschools.org, txschools.org. The state has really done an incredible job of building out a resource that's very visually appealing, very easy to navigate, and where you can get a wealth of information about every campus, every district in our state. And so we are really hopeful that parents will be able to access that and learn more about the great things that are happening in their child's school. So, any questions that you have about the accountability system or where we are? As a district, we're a B. I should have said that. We're at an 87 and a B, and we had a 9-point gain from last year.
Board members, do you have any questions or comments?
Comment, congratulations, I mean, to everybody.
Does that mean the STAR tests and EOC tests are going to remain consistent for the 5 years as well?
That's what we have been told, that we'll have the same test with the same cuts, the same process, that, I think the commissioner has heard the complaints of educators loud and clear that you can't keep making changes and expect us to adapt to that, so.
Can't compare apples to oranges
Right.
and hold us accountable.
We've had apples, plums, nectarines, I mean,
Fruit
every
salad.
year's been different, so.
Board members, any other comments or questions? Okay, then we've reached the end of the agenda for this pre-meeting briefing, and we are adjourned at 6:13 p.m. I call this regular meeting of the Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD Board of Trustees to order at 7 p.m. on August 16, 2018. Board members, district staff members, and members of the audience, you are free to join me in standing as Dr. Bert Alexander from Webb Chapel Church of Christ provides a message, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by John Matthews, and the pledge to the Texas flag, led by Mr. Randy Shackman.
Would you join me? Loving and gracious God, you're indeed the giver of all good gifts, and we thank you today for all your blessings as we begin this new school year. We pray for this Board of Trustees and how the decisions that they make will affect thousands of families in the school district. Give them the understanding that is necessary for their position. Make them accessible to parents of the district. Help them to appreciate that the combined faculty, staff, and administration see their calling as careers and not simply as a job. Give them insight to lead with integrity, that their decisions may reflect what is right and good. Keep them from short-sightedness and pettiness. Help them to make decisions that will be good for all, and guard them against anything that would be detrimental to the district. Dear Lord, grant all the humility to always seek your will in all that they say and do. We pray for our new superintendent, Dr. John Chapman, as he begins his tenure as the chief administrator of the district. Lord, give him the strength, patience, wisdom, empathy, understanding, boldness, meekness, and the ability to understand that doing the right thing is always the right thing to do. Help him to realize the dedication and loyalty that the entire administration team has for this district. May Dr. Chapman and his colleagues quickly learn to understand and depend upon each other as though they've been working together for years. We pray for the faculties of all the schools, for the support staffs, for the facility personnel, for those that keep our buildings clean, for those that create meals for our children, for the bus drivers, for every other individual that I might fail to mention. Bless them all and bless their combined efforts as they attempt to make each individual campus a center of learning, integrity, and imagination. We pray for the successful outcomes of our school events, both great and small. Help us to remember that teamwork learned in school activities is the foundation of cooperation for the society in which we live. May we always be grateful for our blessings and aware of those that are not blessed as we reach out to encourage them. Bless the PTAs with involvement and dedication to support each individual campus. May the parents and teachers combine their efforts to create programs, events, and resources that lift each up and every individual student. Lord, for those of us who no longer have children in school, help us to develop the attitude of Robert Putnam and realize that these children are indeed our kids. Just because we do not have a child in this district, we have a stake in this district because we have a stake in these children. These children represent the direction of our society, and if they're not mentored and loved by all, how will they succeed? Blessings and honor and glory and power be to your name forevermore. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Good evening, everyone. As a district, we dedicate all of our efforts and resources to our goal of high achievement for each student. The board uses this goal to guide all deliberations, decisions, and actions. You will get to see all deliberations, decisions, and actions of the board in open session, with the exception of some items, which may be discussed in closed sections as stipulated in the Texas Government Code, Section 551, commonly known as the Open Meetings Law. These items typically deal with personnel matters, consultation with our attorney, and real estate. For the record, the board members present are Ms. Tara Harbachik, Mr. John Matthews, Ms. Sally Derrick, Mr. Randy Shackman, and Ms. Candace Valenzuela. Ms. Nancy Klein, our president, is absent today. We constitute a quorum and may conduct business on behalf of the district. As required by Board Policy BBD Local, let the minutes reflect that all board members have exceeded the continuing education training hours required for the reporting period ended May 4, 2018. and board members will acquire hours for the current reporting period ending May 4th, 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, before moving on to the next agenda item, I would like to remind you that the board encourages comments from citizens of the district and from district employees. Anyone wishing to speak, either as an individual or as a representative of a group, may do so during agenda item 3, audience for guests. Please submit your request to do so on one of the forms provided on the table just outside the boardroom door. You may place the completed form in the box provided on the same table or present your completed form to Administrative Assistant Ms. Sharon Scribner. Ms. Scribner, would you raise your hand so that they can see you? Thank you. When the board addresses agenda item number 3, audience for guests, you will be invited to the podium to speak to the board. Board members, is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
May I interject? If I remember correctly, I think there is one, excuse me, I apologize, it's a consent agenda that I'm talking about. Yes. Do I have a second? Okay. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed to the motion, raise your hand. Mr. John Matthews. With a vote of 6 in favor and 0 opposed, the motion carries. The next agenda item is number 2, special presentations and recognitions. And item number 2A, district announcements. Dr. Chapman?
Yes, at this time, Mr. Brown's going to make some district announcements.
We are so excited to welcome back all of our students and staff on August the 20th for this first day of school. For back-to-school information, visit our website at www.cfbisd.edu. Campuses will be hosting many back-to-school events over the next several weeks. You can find campus-specific information on our district website. We want to invite the entire public, everyone in the audience and our viewing audience, to our first annual Community Pep Rally on August the 22nd at 7 p.m. at Standard Stadium. All 4 high school football, volleyball, drill, cheer, band, and athletic trainers will be honored. Don't miss out on the fun. We will have free hot dogs, t-shirts, and lots more while the supplies last. So come out and enjoy the fun August the 22nd, 7 p.m. at Standard Stadium. Now, I would like to invite Sharon Escher from the Association of Gifted and Talented to give a brief report.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Escher, and I'm a parent and president of the CFBISD, the Association for the Gifted and Talented, and very happy to address you this evening. I want to share my organization's warmest welcome to Dr. Chapman and wish you and your team success and a wonderful experience in CFBISD in the coming years. I appreciate and thank the CFB School Board of Trustees, Dr. Chapman, Nancy Klein is not here, but the entire team, for the opportunity to speak tonight, and as well for your continuous outstanding work and commitment to our schools, our community in the past and in the coming years. CFBISD's 2018-19 programming offers unique opportunities, and I would like to share the following with you. On September 15, we will offer an Apple coding camp. September 26 is the CFBISD Community Resource Fair, and you will find the following flyer in the foyer to pick up on detailed information. Microsoft Robotic Camp will occur during our Thanksgiving break, and throughout the year we will offer Sync Model parent discussion book studies and Azure Cloud computing classes, various parent speaker events, and fun games for the entire family. Fun game nights. But one significant community-wide program that I would like to announce and invite you to is on Wednesday, October 17th at Newman Smith High School. The title of this event is Middle School Transitions, Discover CFB Middle School Options for your students and Meet Outstanding Principals. It continues our collaboration with Advanced Academic Services and Council PTA for the benefit of our entire community. It's geared towards parents of elementary students focused on 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, moving up into middle school. The program will showcase our wonderful middle school principals, their teams, and what each middle school campus has to offer. The time is 6 to 8 p.m. Location is the Newman Smith High School Auditorium at 2335 North Josie Lane in Carrollton. This program evolved following last year's program on transition to high school, which filled this room to standing only last year. Our association, the CFBISD, is an independent, voluntary organization of parents, educators, friends of the gifted, providing resources for parents and advocating for students identified as such gifted. The mission of the CFBISD is to advocate and support these students and their families, and to ensure that all gifted and talented students in Carrollton-Farmers Branch Independent School District receive appropriate educational opportunities. It is not easy to capture and define what falls under the umbrella term gifted. When we talk of talent, we often speak of humans that have greater awareness, a greater sensitivity, and greater potential to perform beyond others of the same age and environment. Giftedness is something children are born with. It's not a label or any badge of honor. In the classroom, GT students learn quickly and have a strong knowledge base that expands on a nonlinear fashion. Giftedness includes neurological, cognitive, and social emotional differences. These students need and deserve a learning environment that challenges them and motivates them to thrive every day. Every child deserves to learning something new every day. I look forward to hope to be able to greet and welcome you to many of our events, especially on Wednesday, October 17th, 2018 at Newman Smith High School. With best wishes and a great start into the new and exciting year 2018-19, I want to thank you very much.
I would now like to welcome Meredith Watson from the Council PTA for our next agenda item.
Hi, my name is Meredith Watson, and I am serving as this year's CFBISD Council PTA President. Every year, Texas PTA recognizes a middle or high school teacher with the Secondary Educator of the Year award. This prestigious award is given to teachers that support PTA efforts of family engagement, parent education, and advocacy by creating a unique and positive learning environment for their students and involve parents and families in their students' school life. Teachers are nominated from all over the state, and after a rigorous selection process, Texas PTA announces their winners during the summer. Our very own Dion Johnson, a Turner High School English teacher, was awarded this honor in 2018, and we are proud to have her as part of our CFBISD staff. Ms. Johnson grew up in New Orleans, where she attended Dillard University and subsequently the University of Phoenix for graduate school. After graduation, she started her career in corporate America, but decided to leave because she loves students, English, and wanted to give back. As she put it, life is too short not to do what you enjoy, so she began teaching in CFB in 2015. She was nominated for this award by Doris Bumpus, whose son Liam was in her classroom in English class. Doris had the following to say: Ms. Johnson is a true gift to students. She spent 3 months before and after school with regularly scheduled tutoring sessions and turned Liam from a struggling writer into a gifted writer. How can one thank a person that gives your only child the gift of writing? Liam went on to achieve perfect scores on his essays on the SAT and ACT. So this isn't just a mom saying that she's amazing. His scores are the proof. Because of Miss Johnson, he now enjoys writing, and she gave him the gift for life. Miss Johnson is a nice, kind, and patient, supportive, understanding, flexible, and adaptive person. And my favorite descriptive, a gentle strength about her. Stacy Martinez, a former student, says Ms. Johnson is a motherly figure to all of her students. And Mr. Guerrero, a fellow teacher, shared that she is able to reach those unreachable students. Ms. Bourne, the METSA dean, states Ms. Johnson always puts her students first. She goes above and beyond to ensure her classroom is comfortable and functional. Her lessons are engaging and teach every student and make them feel accepted and heard. Plus, her positive attitude towards life is contagious to her students and colleagues alike. She co-teaches with Coach Sargent, a social studies teacher, that says, "The first thing that pops into my mind about Ms. Johnson is how caring she is. Her compassionate character enables her to accomplish what all educators strive for, high achievement for each student. To do this, she understands the sacrifice teachers must make by working the long hours and being critical of herself. Her positive attitude reminds me daily why I chose education as a career." And now I'd like to read you an excerpt from Ms. Johnson's acceptance speech from earlier this year, or from earlier this summer when she accepted the award from Texas PTA. It resonated not just with those of us in CFB, but with leaders from all over the state. We heard how touched they were by what she had to say. We've all heard of the anonymous, oh my goodness, we've all heard the anonymous quote that states, "Teaching is one profession that creates all other professions." While this statement is true, it is equally true that students thrive best when their teachers are supported by others in the school and the community on a local and state level. That leadership, resources, and support that the Texas PTA provides to the students and their families through programs to promote literacy, resources to aid in homework assistance and time management, and the shared power given to parents and school staff to influence and create policies and programs, just to name a few, are the reasons why our students grow and thrive in both the classroom and in their postgraduate pursuits. Because of this collaborative involvement, teachers like me, Ms. Johnson, are not left in the trenches to fight to educate students in the midst of the outside influences that are constantly warring against their success in the classroom. We are so very proud to have Ms. Johnson as the 2018 Secondary Educator of the Year, and we wanted to share this honor with the CFB ISD School Board and family. So, if we could all give her a round of applause. At this time, Ms. Johnson, if you would like to step up to the front, Dr. Chapman and Mr. Ramos would like to take a picture.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to remind you that the board encourages comments from citizens of the district and from district employees. Anyone wishing to speak, either as an individual or as a representative of a group, may do so during agenda item number 3, Audience for Guests. Again, please submit your request to do so on one of the forms provided on the table just outside the boardroom door. You may place the completed form in the box provided on the same table or present your completed form to Administrative Assistant Ms. Sharon Scribner. When the board addresses agenda item number 3, Audience for Guests, you will be invited to the podium to speak to the board. Now, we will take a brief recess until 7:19 till 7:29. This meeting of the Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD Board of Trustees is called back to order. The next item on the agenda is Audience for Guests. Before we begin, I will remind our audience members of the board's procedures for handling Audience for Guests. Anyone who wants to speak during Audience for Guests must sign in and list the topic they want to discuss. Each speaker will be allowed to speak once during the Audience for Guests. Each speaker will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to address the board. and the audience for guest portion of the meeting will be no more than 30 minutes total as dictated by Board Policy BED Local. If during that time the board is not able to hear from everyone who has signed up, those who did not have an opportunity to speak will be invited to sign up to speak during audience for guests at the board's next regularly scheduled meeting. Because the board wants to hear from as many of you as possible, while also keeping the meeting running efficiently, groups of more than 5 people who want to present a particular viewpoint on a topic should appoint one person to speak on behalf of their group. Again, that speaker's presentation will be limited to 3 minutes. If you speak during audience for guests, either individually or on behalf of a group, please remember that the board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda for this meeting. Last, we ask that you do not discuss students who are not your own child. Specific complaints should be addressed through the district's grievance process, not in audience for guests. District policy DGBA has been established for addressing employee complaints. Policy FNG is the avenue for filing parent complaints, and policy GF addresses community member complaints. Grievance forms can be obtained at any campus administration or in the central administration offices. Timekeeper, please start the 30 minutes now. Please also time each speaker for 3 minutes. Speaker, the timekeeper will let you know when you have 1 minute left. Do we have a volunteer to be the timekeeper?
The timers are in front of me, so I will be the timekeeper.
Let me know when you're ready. Ready? Okay. I've received one request form for audience for guests. When I call your name, please come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record. We do ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. We've received one, and I call Mary Lovell.
Thank you, Superintendent, Trustee Ramos. My name is Mary Lovell. I reside at 1307 Barrington Drive in Coppell, Texas. I'm here today as a member of the facility assessment team that brought its recommendation to the board to invest in our community and in our children by investing in our facilities last month. I want to just share, I was not able to attend that meeting, but I did see it on television, and I was very impressed by the work that the board did, the hard work the board did in questioning Doug and other committee members to make sure that you understood the ramifications and the deep work that the committee did. Doug did an outstanding job channeling the passion of probably about 50 community-minded citizens who care about not just our kids and not just our teachers, but they care about the entire community, and they know that bond elections are not easy. I mean, they're challenging, and they should be. We know that, you know that. But it's time. CFBISD facilities need to be reinvested in. Our educators deserve that. Our children deserve that. Our communities deserve to have buildings that they're proud of when they drive to and from work and take their children to and from school. A key condition of the committee's recommendation was that this be accomplished with no tax increase. And I think that's fundamental. It was very important to every member of the committee, as Doug shared with you, that no net tax increase come out of as a result. And that's all I have to say. We think it's time to reinvest community funds in our kids and in our facilities. We've underinvested, quite frankly, and the facilities see the consequences of that. It's time to remedy that, and thank you.
We will proceed to our next agenda item number 4, the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a mechanism that the board uses to approve a number of routine items together with a single vote. In compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, the public notice for this meeting includes the list of all consent agenda items, and the board has been provided ample information about these items in advance. Prior to any action taken on the consent agenda, board members may request a withdrawal of individual items for clarification or discussion. Board members, are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda at this time? Mr. Shackman?
Yes, I'd like to ask that we pull item, now I lost my item, O, and we'll get some public clarification on that one in a minute.
Okay. Are there any other items that need to be removed? If there are no other items to be removed, do I have a motion regarding the consent agenda as amended? Mr. Matthews?
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as amended.
Do I have a second? Ms. Candace Valenzuela? Is there any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. And all those opposed to the motion, raise your hand. With a vote of 6 in favor and 0 opposed, the motion carries. The next agenda item is number 6, items for discussion and/or action. Ladies and gentlemen, well, no, I think at this point now we go ahead and to non-action items, correct? I'm just going to refer to Dr. Chapman right now.
Yes, thank you. At this time, we're going to have, Scott's going to come up and present an update on the 2018-19 budget.
Do we want to look at item O? Item O that was removed from consent?
Yeah, we're going to do that
Oh.
under next one. We're good. Yes. So, that's his presentation right here, and you can ask Randy what questions do you have? Once he asks those.
Good evening. I'm here to do a report on our resource allocation for 17-18 and 18-19. As we get started, we want to look back at our 2017-18 budget priorities. Our number one priority going into 17-18 was a compensation package. That included a 4% increase for our teachers and our auxiliary staff, and a 3% compensation adjustment for our administrative staff. It also included program enhancements, elementary class size average, investment in technology, and a balanced budget for 17-18. As we look at our 2017 projected actuals, on the local side, we received $1.6 million in agricultural rollback collections that weren't in the original budget. We also received about $900,000 of investment earnings. That's due to our increased interest rates throughout the 17-18 fiscal year. On the state revenue side, we're projected to receive about $600,000 of additional available school fund, as well as $2.6 million from Foundation School Fund. This is really not any new state revenue money. This is mainly the result of some accrual adjustments between fiscal years, and so we're just moving it from one fiscal year to another. We also anticipated to have about $300,000 in transportation expenses from our in-house transportation for the month of August. And as we looked at our non-payroll expenditures, we looked at just historical trends to kind of project out what we'll end our 17-18 fiscal year with. And also, we received our 2015 property value audit, and what that's going to result in about $2.8 million in additional state revenue. We haven't received that money yet. We think we'll get it before August 31st, but it's really dependent on TEA, and so it may be after 9/1. As we look at our 2017 budget, 17-18 budget and projected actuals, the budget column is our amended budget as of July 31st. You can see our total revenue is about $263.3 million. We're projecting that we'll end our 17-18 fiscal year at $270.9, which is a $7.6 million positive variance. You can see the variances, about $4 million from local revenue, about 3.4 from state. As you look at our total expenditures, our amended budget is about $265.9 million. We project our estimated actuals will be $264 million, which is a $1.9 million positive variance. We believe that when we end 17-18, we will have about a $6.9 million surplus. As we look at our 2018-19 budget priorities, compensation is still our top priority, as well as program enhancements, which include the expansion of our dual language program and expand our full-day pre-K at 2 additional campuses. Also, our signature programs, which include our STEM and our fine arts academies, investment in technology, and for the district to have long-term financial stability going forward. As we look at our compensation, our 2020 goal of $55,000 for beginning teacher pay. In our Vision 2020, our 2018-19 target is $53,475. Our 18-19 beginning teacher pay will be $53,635. The compensation that the board approved is a 3% increase. To give you an idea, for every 1% of pay increase, it costs about $1.6 million. They also, the board approved a $16 increase in our district health insurance contribution. And that, for district-wide, it'll be about $450,000 to $500,000 for that increase. Also included in our 18-19 budget is $712,000 in our years of service pay, which is our previously named longevity. And also we included about $1.2 million in performance pay in our 18-19 budget.
Just want to add on the benefit adjustment that there was reasoning behind the $16. That was the amount it took for 65% of our employees who choose the employee-only plan. That would keep them flat to where the increase in premiums did not impact them. So that's where that amount came from.
This is the historical raise information. You can see in 18-19 we gave a 3% raise, and it goes back all the way to 11-12. During that year, we did not give a compensation adjustment. This is a beginning teacher survey. It goes back to 15-16 all the way to 18-19. And you can see at 15-16, CFB was at 49,000. We were only above Frisco and tied with Allen at 49,000. But as the board has committed to compensation for the last few years, you can see we moved our position to only behind HEB and Louisville for 18-19 at 53,635.
We also want to remind the board that we're very proud of our taxpayers who elected to support the tax ratification election. Compensation was the goal and a primary focus with that election, and so those funds have been utilized to make this movement over the past 3 years.
As we look at some 18-19 estimated changes on the general fund on the revenue side, our local revenues is set to increase about $19.9 million more than in 17-18. Our certified values came in at a 9.25% increase. That will increase the property tax revenue to about 19.4. In our revenue projections, we get lost throughout the year from protests and the litigation where the values are lowered, and so we don't budget the whole 9.25% increase. We have some adjustments to account for that offset or reduction in value that happens throughout the year. Also, we increased our budget and investment income due to anticipated higher interest rates. On the state revenue side, we're set to increase, the state revenue increase will be about $7.2 million. 5.7 comes per capita or our available school fund. The reason that's such an increase is because we're in the second year of the biennium, and usually in the second year of the state's budget, it's usually a much higher rate than it was in the first year, and so that's what's accounting for the large increase in the state revenue for 18-19. Also, we're set to increase our about $1 million in our foundation school fund. This is mainly due to our Tier 2 funding. And TRS on behalf is going to increase about $400,000 as well. We also want to point out that state funding and Chapter 41 payments could be impacted in future years because of the lag in our state revenue calculation. And that is if in 1920 our certified values don't go up by that same 9.25%, then our state funding will be reduced. And so as long as we're growing at the same rate, we won't see that lag in our state funding calculations drop. As we look at our 18-19 expenditures, recapture payment is set to increase $13.1 million. Our TIF payment is going to increase $13.8 million. On the transportation budget will be $9.2 million. And of that 9.2, there's $1.5 million that is for bus replacements or purchase I think about 15 buses or so. We didn't have any major changes in our departments or our student campus per student allocations. We also had some special education IDEA B positions that were previously funded by title funds, which were from carryovers from the past. Now we've used that carryover, and so we're going to move those positions from our title funds back into our general fund, and that's going to amount to about $1.3 million to the general fund this year. And also we have staffing increases for our signature programs, our fine arts, and our STEM academies. As we looked at our proposed tax rate, for 17-18, our total tax rate was 138.1. Going into 18-19, we will propose that the M&O rate stay the same at $1.17, and our INS rate, or our debt service rate, will be 0.2 for a total tax rate of $1.37. And so that will mean a slight, a little over 1 penny decrease on our total tax rate for 18-19. This is a slide of our CFB tax rates from 0506 all the way to 1819. In 0506 and 0607, that's when the state required districts to compress their tax rate to $1.50 to down to $1.04. And from 0708 to 1516, we were on a slight gradual decline, and then in 1617, that's when we passed our TRE, and our M&O rate went from $1.04 to $1.17. But the last couple of years, we've been able to reduce the tax rate, overall tax rate, by a penny almost each year. As we look at our 18-19 overall budget compared to our 17-18 adopted budget, for 17-18, we adopted $263.3 million in revenue. And for 18-19, our preliminary budget is $290.4, which is a $27 million increase. You can see the majority of that increase relates to our tax revenue of $19.4 and our state revenue of $1.6. As we look at our expenditure side, the total expenditures were $263.3 million, and our preliminary 18-19 budget is $294 million, which is a $30.6 million increase. You can see our recapture payments are $13 million, going up $13 million. Our TIF payments are $3.8 million increase. You can see in contracted services a decrease of 4.3. This is where we previously paid Dallas County schools, and so because that's a contracted service, and now we're bringing that in-house, those dollars are being shifted to the payroll, and so that's why you're seeing a large payroll increase of $13 million on that line. And so overall, for 18-19, we're going to propose a $3.5 million deficit. We feel this is a worst-case scenario going forward. And throughout 18-19, we'll work to see if we can find cost savings throughout the year. And so we hope not to realize this $3.5 million deficit. As we're projecting a $3.5 million deficit, there's a couple items that could have a potential positive impact for our 18-19 budget. As we were building our revenue projections, we did not build any enrollment growth. We kept our student enrollment factored in for 18-19 the same as 17 and 18. So if we get additional students from STEM academies or fine arts academies, then that will only have a positive impact for our revenue projections and reduce that deficit even further. Also, if we get additional 50 pay for pre-K students, that would mean about $247,000 of additional revenues. And also, we haven't factored in all our facility consolidation savings from consolidating McLaughlin and then our Huey locations. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Oh, man. As we look at our fund balance for 17-18, if we realize our $6.9 million deficit and our property value audit of $2.7 million, we will end 17-18 with $96.1 million in fund balance, or 155 days of operations. As we move forward into 18-19, if we realize the worst-case scenario of a $3.5 million deficit, we would end our fund balance, our ending fund balance would be $92.4 million, or 141 days of operations. In our Vision 2020 goal, our fund balance target was to have a greater than 130 days. With our projected fund balance, it would be 141 days, so we would be meeting our target for 18-19. And our next steps at our August 23rd board meeting, we will bring back to the board, we will hold a public hearing for our 18-19 budget. We'll also have a proposal for your consideration to adopt the 18-19 budget, as well as adopt the 18-19 tax rates. And we'll have a final 2017-18 budget amendment, as well as a resolution for GASB 54 designating fund balance. And that concludes our presentation this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Roderick. Board members, are there any questions or comments regarding the presentation on the update of the 2018-2019 budget? Mr. Shackman.
Couple of questions. Mr. Roderick, just out of curiosity, you were mentioning that the 2.8 million property value audit might come in after September 1, so that moves us into the new budget year. What does that do in terms of accounting accrual? Does it impact the new budget, or is it just wash itself out?
Yes, it would. Based on when we get it, it would either be in 18-19 or in our 17-18 budget. For some accounting, we can accrue that back into 17-18, where even if we know it's coming, it's on the schedule of payments. It just hasn't been paid by TEA yet. We think it's going to come, but you know, TEA kind of goes at their own pace.
So it's not going to change the projections for 18-19 by one way or the other. Yeah. And then the other question is, we talked about finishing the year with, and kudos to everybody who worked on that, to get us a $6.9 million surplus. How is that coming into process, and how does that impact the potential $3 million deficit if we did better this year?
We received that. It was mainly on the revenue side where we collected more taxes, our ag rollback taxes, where that wasn't in the original budget. Right. And so that benefited us, as well as I had talked about when we do our revenue projections, we anticipate lower, as the certified values to the end of the year. We think that those didn't drop as much as what we anticipated, and so that's, a lot of years it's more than 3%, a lot of years it's more, greater than 3%, and so we had a positive variance there, so that helped us, on the revenue side.
Can I just add to that, Mr. Shackman? As you know, as we have these funds that come in, we wouldn't want to commit those for recurring costs, so we wouldn't want to make plans to increase anything we were doing in 18-19. However, what we will be talking with the board about is options as we commit fund balance next week In the past, we have committed fund balance for construction or technology or other things like this. This does give us the flexibility to do some items in advance of the bond to get some projects moving. And so that's what we would potentially consider with these funds, because we would want to use them for one-time items, but maintain our 130 days or more, which we would be able to do. So that's what we'd be looking at with these excess funds potentially, and to discuss that next week.
Board members, are there any other comments or questions? Ms. Valenzuela?
So with the $13.1 million increase in recapture, what is our total?
It's a little over $22 million, almost $23 million.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Then the next agenda item is number 6, items for discussion and/or action. We will now address the items that were pulled from consent. Mr. Shackman, I think you pulled consent agenda item O. Consider all matters related to wealth equalization, including executing an agreement for the purchase of attendance credits, and delegate contractual authority to obligate the school district under Texas Education Code, TEC, Section 11.1511C4 to the superintendent.
It's a mouthful just to say.
Yes, it is.
I pull that in the interest, again, as board members, we get a lot of material to help us understand and work through all this, and staff works with us as well. The phrase Robin Hood and Chapter 41 are in vogue in discussions today a lot, and so I thought it might be appropriate to just hear what was the thinking of staff and get it on the record as to why we chose the option to purchase attendance credits, and talk to us a little bit about the process and what this is going to mean for
Okay,
us.
very good. Just want to back up a little bit and start with what is a Chapter 41 district, so that can explain why we even have to do this. It's tied into the $22 million that you just mentioned that we have to pay back to the state. But Chapter 41 of the Texas Education Code makes provisions for certain school districts to share their local tax revenues with other school districts. For the purposes of the school finance system in Texas, districts are designated as either Chapter 41 or Chapter 42 districts. The relative wealth of the school district is measured in terms of the taxable value of property that lies within the school district borders, divided by the number of students and weighted average daily attendance. Chapter 41 provisions are sometimes referred to as Share the Wealth or the Robin Hood Plan, because districts subject to Chapter 41 of the Texas Education Code are required, emphasis, to share their wealth with other school districts. The funds that are distributed by Chapter 41 districts are recaptured by the school finance system to assist with financing of public education for all school districts. So our wealth per WADA causes us to fall into the category of being a Chapter 41 district. As a result of being classified as a Chapter 41 district, we are required to enter into a contract whereby we agree, even though we're required, to pay the state money. They do give us options. All of the options have specific challenges associated with them. The majority of school districts do choose option 3, which is the option we choose. It says it's called the purchase of attendance credit. The easiest way to explain that is we really just calculate how much wealth we have to send back to the state to get us down to the level we're allowed to keep, and we make payments throughout the year to the state to get us to that level. And so that's really the short answer of what this contract is. It's basically just saying that we're going to pay the state back throughout the school year to get us back down to that level. Right, and it's the selection that most districts will utilize. It's the most efficient, easiest to manage.
Thanks for that explanation. The only thing I would add is WADA is, for those of us who don't know, it is weighted average daily attendance. The state, I believe, pays us. There are various incremental amounts depending upon students and classifications during the year, and there are weightings that get used. Long story short is we're having to return an awful lot of our local money to the state through Chapter 41. And anything we can do to encourage our legislators to get Texas school finance figured out in a more appropriate way and get rid of that, it would be helpful. But thank you for that explanation. And with that, unless someone else has a question, I'm ready to make a motion that we move forward.
Board members, are there any other questions or comments? Okay.
Then,
Mr. Shackman?
Mr. Ramos, I would move that we approve item O from the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Ms. Herbacek? Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. And all those opposed, raise your hand. With a vote of 6 in favor and 0 opposed, the motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, our next agenda item is number 6B. Consider declaring buildings surplus and authorizing them for disposal. Dr. Chapman?
Yes. Ms. Tillman?
Yes. As we've been working through our facilities and looking for ways to improve our operating efficiencies and effectiveness, one of the things that came out of the assessment was certain conditions of certain of our facilities warranted that you wouldn't want to put additional funds into those campuses. They were at a point that they really needed to be demoed if you indeed wanted to utilize those facilities. As we started analyzing the facilities and looking at options, we also determined that we did have some that were underutilized as well within the district. So we've been making moves to better utilize our facility and get rid of excess square footage where we can, in particular if it was square footage in need of a high amount of repair. So the facilities we have identified thus far is Montgomery Elementary. None of these facilities are being used for instructional purposes. Some of these have been abandoned for quite some time. So we have Montgomery Elementary. We also merged McLaughlin Elementary this year. And then we have the Science Resource Center. The Science Resource Center is going to be relocated. And so these 3 buildings are at a point where they are well beyond their useful life. And so the first step that has to be taken in order for us to move towards demolition is for the board to actually declare these properties surplus. We do have a little bit of, on the McLaughlin and the Science Resource, we are working with Farmers Branch. Part of the sale with the TLC was tied into some potential utilization of that land for a purpose that serves both the school district and the city. We'll be working towards those agreements as well, but within the agreements, it's both agreed that we would demolish those buildings and then return them to a green space. So this is step 1 to move towards that process.
Board members, are there any questions or comments regarding that? So, board members, this agenda item is marked for action. Is there a motion to be considered? I have a motion from Ms. Herbacek. Is there a second? Oh, I apologize, Ms. Herbacek.
I move that we approve item 6B, declare the buildings noted in the agenda surplus and authorize the district administration for disposal.
And I have a motion from Ms. Herbacek. Is there a second? Second from Ms. Derrick. Is there any discussion, board members? Okay, all those in favor?
I'm talkative tonight.
Oh, you are? I didn't see that you raised your hand.
Sorry.
Shackman, go for it.
We noted here, and we have some arrangements and discussion with Farmers Branch on the Montgomery and the Science Resource Center. We mentioned that general funds will be required for demolition of the McLaughlin. Do we have any ballpark ideas on what that would be? And is there any possibility that a purchaser of that property might incur that cost with it being discounted out, so it's not money out of our pocket?
We are working on estimates right now. We're going to bring that back to the board in October. There's some challenges with some of these demolitions, so I would hate to put a number out there at this point because it's going to be in a bid status. So we have estimates, but so we'd rather not say what those are at this point. In terms of a buyer taking these on, because it was part of our Farmers Branch, that was part of the agreement, was that we would demolish those for the betterment of the city and the school district. So the Science Resource Center, not necessarily McLaughlin, but
Right.
I mean McLaughlin and Montgomery. McLaughlin's paid out of the general fund, so we would have the option on that one, but we don't want to sell that land. We want to hang on to that. We also want to hang on to Montgomery. Montgomery is tied in with Farmers Branch, and that was what we agreed to, was to actually demo it so that the green space could be used potentially for the city and the school district for a joint use.
Board members, any other discussion? Okay, then all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. And all those against, please indicate by raising your hand. With a vote of 6 in favor and 0 opposed, the motion carries. Our next agenda item is number 6C. Consider purchase of furniture for Stellar programs. Dr. Chapman?
Yes. Mr. Finley will now make a presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. Board members, we're excited to come to you with a recommendation for our initial startup furniture plan for our 4 STEM campuses at Freeman, Blanton, Rainwater, and River Chase. The furniture package will include furnishings for both the STEM centers at each of the campus and the satellite maker spaces that we talked about a little bit last time. The packages are designed to be flexible, and that's in accordance with the STEM curriculum. We want the furniture to reflect the dynamics of the STEM components. So that's a critical piece of this design, is all the furniture is flexible, can be moved easily by both students and teachers. Very colorful, and it really interacts with the program at the campuses. Specifically, at the STEM centers, each campus will receive desks and chairs that can be configured in numerous ways. So the desks are really interestingly shaped that can be pushed together to form big tables that a lot of kids can sit around, and individual desks if that's the need at that time. Very easily to be moved. It also includes furniture at the maker spaces, which are those small spaces throughout the campuses. And that will actually include a big table on casters that can move around, and then stackable stools that you can stack high or low, again, depending on the use of the space, all different colors. And lastly, each of the campuses will receive 2 makerspace STEM storage movable cabinets, which is really neat. It's got little bins because a lot of the elementary components for STEM is small little manipulatives that they use, and so it's a good place to store that. That can be hauled around the whole campus and used at all these different spaces as needed. Again, very colorful. It's got a rideable board on the back, so it's going to be a neat component for these campuses. I will note that it's for the 4 campuses, and we have 5 STEM campuses, because the Strickland component, that furniture piece, is actually included in their big comprehensive project. So that is our recommendation that we're bringing to you tonight.
Board members, this agenda item is marked for action. Is there a motion to be considered? Ms. Valenzuela?
I move that we purchase the furniture for the Stellar programs.
Okay. Is there a second? Mr. Matthews? Okay. Is there any discussion? Yes, Ms. Horacek.
So the makerspace area, I know what that is, and then the STEM area, I'm a little confused. The difference between STEM area and just the normal classroom within the campus. What will or are they intertwined?
Good question.
Some?
That'd be Dr. Warnock. You address that?
Absolutely. So the program design is that STEM is operating much like a special, like an art, music, or PE. So the STEM center is going to be that space, like the gym would be for PE or the music room.
Okay.
So that is a classroom dedicated for STEM learning, where the STEM teacher will be and students will rotate through for instruction related to STEM content. Additionally, the STEM kind of moves throughout all of the instruction, so it's integrated, so students have that as part of their ongoing instruction in their traditional classrooms too, but this extended piece is in the STEM center.
The specials room, basically.
Yeah, like a specials room,
Okay.
if you think about it that way.
Okay. So
Does
our
that clarify?
It does. I mean, our classroom, we still have classrooms. We're not
Right.
redoing all of our classrooms.
No,
here
so I
or
would be
anything
in
like that.
a traditional classroom for my instruction, and then would have exposure in the STEM center for a rotation as a student.
Okay, perfect.
Any other discussion, board members? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. And all those opposed? With a vote of 6 in favor and 0 against, the motion carries. Our next agenda item is number 6D, consider designation of voting delegate and an alternate delegate to TASB General Conference.
Yes,
Board-
sir. Oh, I'm
Dr.
sorry.
Chapman, no, after you.
Yes, sir. Each year, the Board of Trustees considers going to the Texas Association of School Boards / TASA convention. At that time, TASB, Texas Association of School Boards, recommends that each district provide a voting delegate and then an alternate to go. And so at this time, we're asking the Board of Trustees to nominate and elect a voting delegate and then an alternate for the TASB convention at the end of September.
Mr. Matthews.
I'd like to nominate Tara Hrbacek as the voting delegate.
Do I have a second? Ms. Valenzuela?
You don't need a second.
Don't?
Yeah,
Okay.
is there any-
Okay, so are there any other nominations? Ms. Valenzuela?
I nominate Sally Derrick as the alternate.
Okay. Board members, this item is marked for action, so do I have a motion regarding this item? Mr. Matthews?
I move that we name Tara Hrbacek as our voting delegate to the TASB convention and Sally Derrick as our alternate delegate.
Do I have a second? Ms. Valenzuela? Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. All those opposed? With a vote of 6 in favor and 0 against, the motion carries. Our next agenda item is number 6E. Consider all matters related to the endorsement of TASB Board of Director nominations. Dr. Chapman?
Yes, sir. In front of you have a list of individuals that have been nominated for candidacy for Region 10 Board of Directors. It's up to the Board of Trustees for Carrollton-Farmers Branch if you would like to nominate one of these individuals and endorse them as a candidate for Region 10 Board of Directors. And I do not know any of these individuals, so if you have any preference, if you do not, we can move on with this agenda item.
Board members, this item is marked for action. Do I have a motion regarding this item?
We have traditionally, when we didn't know them, not endorsed anyone,
Hi.
and that would be my recommendation, as we don't actually know the person. So my recommendation would be that we simply, without an action item motion being made, that this item simply slips away and we go on.
Ms. Valenzuela?
I happen to know one of them.
Oh, okay.
So Ty Jones from Lancaster ISD has actually been serving pretty prominently with the TASB directors for quite some time. I think that he's very serious about his service, and I would recommend him to the board.
Okay. Anybody else?
I also know Ty. I think he'd be a good person.
Good.
So then, do I have a motion?
All right.
Ms. Valenzuela?
I move that we endorse Ty Jones from Lancaster ISD for our endorsement to the TASB Board of Directors.
And do I have a second? Mr. Matthews seconds. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. And all those against, please raise your hand. With a vote of 6 in favor and 0 opposed, the motion carries. Board members, our next agenda item is 6F. Consideration and approval of an order calling a bond election to be held by the Carrollton-Farmers Branch Independent School District, making provision for the conduct of a joint election and resolving other matters incident and related to such election. Dr. Chapman, is there relative information the administration wishes to present to the board and public at this time?
Yes, sir. Ms. Tillman has provided you with a bond order. You have that in front of you. And one thing that I want to address through a little research over the past few days, I want to talk about buying buses with the bond. So if we can, Ms. Tillman, let's talk about that item, because I've learned that the CAC was not interested in buying buses and putting that on there. So let's address that. Let's get the council to talk a little bit more about the bus purchasing part of the bond order.
Yes, sir. After we were given direction on July 26th to take the next steps to move towards a potential bond, we did reach out to Wash Gallegos, and they've been working also with Norton Rose Fulbright to develop this and make recommendations that they feel like is in the best interest of the district or potential options to put in the bond, both legally and optional. And so they're here this evening, and I'm going to invite, you met these attorneys before the meeting, so we're going to invite Tony up to the podium here and give him the opportunity to give you a quick overview of the bond order and discuss the item that Mr. Chapman has addressed.
Thank you, Tanya. Good evening, board members, superintendent. So as you may know, you guys have gone through this process. You could use bond money for facilities, buses, and land. And we generally recommend to all of our districts to give yourself as much flexibility as you can, because through the process, you may end up with savings. You may not. But if you do, you want to be able to have the flexibility to address the needs of your district. In a growing district, a district your size, that's something that you should consider. Now, is it mandatory? No. Is it something that if you believe your community feels strongly against, that's okay too. We would take that part out. But in general, it's something that we like to recommend to our clients, so that way they do have that flexibility down the road. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to just use that money and end up buying a whole fleet of buses. No, you are making commitments to your community with the information that you've already provided. I've seen that from the committee. You guys are doing improvements, renovations to all your buildings, to a few select buildings, and also to your fine arts and athletic facilities. Those are things that you are going to need to do. Those are the general things. In your order, we included in the proposition language those general items, but specifically but not limited to those items. And we also included the general language that the statute allows to give you some flexibility. We have a couple of orders. If you do feel strongly that the buses is not something your community is comfortable with, we have an order prepared for that as well. But it's not unusual, it's not unheard of. It's just something, as your superintendent mentioned, it gives you guys some flexibility down the road. But at the end of the day, it truly is up to you guys. We're here to serve and support you guys however you see fit.
Board members, are there any comments or questions?
I also want to mention that the early voting polling locations are very much subject to change. So with this copy you have, don't go out and post those on your social media or anything like that, because those are not final right now. Those are just what has been proposed at this point. We include those, and then those will be updated as those locations are finalized.
Mr. Board President?
Yes.
The order allows
Vice President.
Vice President, that's right, I'm sorry. Nancy's not going to like that, huh? Mr. Board Vice President, yeah, the order allows for the flexibility to delegate some of those final details of the exhibits to your administration, because we're working, Elizabeth Nelson works with you guys on a lot of day-to-day issues, and she's working with Tanya to make sure we get all those specifics, because those things are being developed as we speak. They just had a meeting the other day. So this order allows you guys to mainly, the big thing about the order is you got to do it by the deadline. The deadline is August 20th, so we're okay there. We properly posted, agenda language is fine, we gave you guys a recommended motion language. The other big issue is the amount that you're going to, you got to vote on specifically on that. And then, of course, the other thing is what we just talked about, the proposition language, trying to be clear with your community in the order. And then the place you really get to commit or really be more specific with your community is, after this, we'll work with your administration to develop your brochures and informational items to give to your community in terms of what that money is going to be used for. And that's where you can be real specific. And those are the things that you can really continue to develop and commit to. And then the last piece, we did talk to your superintendent and Tanya about down the road, there's some ethics that we need to be careful with, some do's and don'ts in terms of what a board can do, what a district can do. Your superintendent in this community is a superintendent 24/7, so you got to be careful. Can't use district funds to advocate for or against a measure. So that's just something I wanted to mention before, I forgot.
And Ms. Tillman will hand you a document before you leave today, or now if you'd like. And you need to really read through those. Depending on what the board decides to do tonight, we really need to schedule a training very, very soon on the Code of Ethics. that we can walk through that. You can ask as many questions as possible. We do not want you to get in any boiling water through this process. Please read this carefully as we move forward.
And that is important because we've had to defend a superintendent for ethics code allegations, and we've had to help districts through that. So it is important to do that. And I want to make sure y'all know also, I want Mr. Paul Braden just for a moment. He's with our co-bond counsel, Norton Rose Fulbright. He's in your local area. We work with his team and our team, and we'll make sure you guys are covered. But they're the ones who provided that. We have that as well, but we wanted to make sure you guys are aware of that information. And we also have one for your superintendent to give to the staff, and I think that's been provided as well. Because it's important. Staff members have to be careful too. They don't lose their right on their own time to say what they want to say, do what they want to do, but if they're in the role of a paid district employee, you got to be careful.
Mr. Shackman?
Looking at the two options, inclusion of buses, not, I see that the dollar amount remains the same. What issues, what liabilities, what of including, I like as inclusive as possible, giving us all options, and yet are there, why should we or why shouldn't we?
It's really the dollars. I'm not recommending you change the dollar at all. Your community came forward with that amount. That's what you need to stick with.
Right.
But in the event that you have savings, whether it's through value engineering or whether it's through a change and a revision to the scope of a project, and you end up with a few $100,000. I have a district the other day that had some money left over, but they didn't put buses in there, so it limited their ability to use that money. So can they still use that money for other projects? Of course. But they weren't able to use it for that extra flexibility resource, which is something that is nice to have. But at the same time, again, from my understanding, I've talked to Tanya, there was some strong feelings from the committee about maybe that shouldn't be an idea, but we wanted the board and you guys to know sometimes we do recommend it because it gives you the flexibility just in case. So it's not right or wrong, it's just a matter of what's best for you guys right now.
And I think the other piece that we need to just address is that we are going to meet all of those obligations that the CAC has recommended to the board. And again, this is only in the event that there were any extra monies available at the very end of this process, that you have only the flexibility to buy buses. But we're not going to go out there and purchase a single school bus unless there's any funds available at the very end of this project. So I want to, again, just reiterate that. But it's up to you as a board. And one of the things I want to say is if there were, again, I wasn't part of that process, but if there was any issues through the CAC, and if this is going to cause any potential issue of this bond passing, you need to consider that and maybe removing that language.
Ms. Hrbacek?
So looking at that and hearing from different members of the community, that looking at this language and having heard from several members of the community during that process, and maybe you can comment on it more, having been part of that in the beginning. I think the presentation, I guess I was a little disappointed that we had the community presentation on their recommendations after a lot of work on the community, to see some of that, to see that in here. And maybe I think a better presentation in 7-10 years when we do that, if there's a differing opinion from staff and administration, that we should have a community recommendation and a staff recommendation for all the reasons that are being stated for the flexibility. But the idea that the community committee representing our stakeholders had said, we don't want these in here, that was disappointing to me. So that's just my comment.
Ms. Derrick?
Was part of the CAC in the early stages, and it was a unanimous decision among the committee to not have language on this proposal that mentioned buses. For multiple reasons. The Dallas County school system demise was one of them. The fear that language in this proposal could potentially turn voters away from the support of this bond. Unanimous decision, hands down from the get-go. They felt that that was one of the most risky things we could do as a committee to keep the language in that. So as someone that was there and witnessed that, I feel like we brought a cross-section of the community together for this committee, and it was a great cross-section that represents, I feel, our voters, and they had concerns. So my recommendation from that would have been not to include that language.
Board members, anybody else that would like to comment?
So we have 2 bond orders. And so we do have another bond order that's here. And so if you decide to take the bus language out, then you can tonight vote on that bond order instead of the one that does have it. But we do need to make a motion and move forward tonight.
One vote on which bond order,
Yes, ma'am.
and then another vote.
No, just make one motion. You can make one motion
And
on.
reference the
and
one
reference-
without it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, we provided some a motion language, and I'm not sure if it's in your packet or not. If not, I could give it to you, and we can just be clear in the motion that the order shall not approve
Yeah.
or shall not include buses. So, yeah, so I move to adopt an order calling a bond election to be held by the Carrollton-Farmers branch of the Penn School District.
We still need the board to decide if that's.
Absolutely.
You've only heard from me.
Yes, correct.
And Sally,
No,
right?
correct.
Okay.
So you can do that through a motion in a second if you so choose, and then they can vote for it, and then have that discussion. It's up to you.
Mr. Shackman?
My question moves away from this. It's another question about the bond, so perhaps I would recommend that we solve this issue first.
Well, if they make a motion in a second, then we'll roll them on, so you may ask your question.
Okay, well then, talk to us about the process. Another recommendation that was very adamant from our CAC was that this not be a tax increase. Talk to us about that. How are we going to sell this to our community that we want $353.9 million worth of bonds and it's not a tax increase?
So as you know, we have not called a bond since 2003, so
Right.
that works in our favor now.
Right.
And we have some dips coming in our current debt structure that allows us to be able to issue additional debt and maintain our current tax rate. So if you look at our debt schedule, you can see where those happen, where we have natural drops, and I'm talking about our yearly debt service requirements. So at the point when your debt service goes down, it gives you the opportunity to issue additional debt at a certain amount without having to raise your tax rate. We made very conservative estimates. We did not factor in any property value growth beyond this year, and we were still able to maintain our current rate. And so that's basically how we structured it. Now, the rate will change depending on how aggressive we issue the bonds, what time period we're going to issue these over. So that will change, but all the models we looked at, we were able to stay at the current rate, including the drop, the penny drop that we're proposing right now.
And we'll have videos, we'll have flyers demonstrating that, so the taxpayers can see that there will not be this.
And one of the big deals that's being bandied around a lot now is called that swap and drop thing, and that is not what we're doing here. And the community can have great confidence in that. And really, we're going to be able to do this because staff has worked very hard and the board has worked hard doing some bond refinance and some other things that has enabled us to leverage our debt in a more effective way. Okay.
We have
Yes,
one of
Mr.
the
Rogers.
lowest debt per student ratios in DFW in particular for our size.
Yeah.
Mr. Boccic?
And since it's been so long that we've had a bond election, I don't even think I was a parent at that time, but to clarify or to confirm to the community that just because when the community approves the bond, that does not give administration the blank check to go automatically do all of these projects or these items or purchases listed on the order. Those items still have to go through the regular process of being approved by the board at the time and all different processes. So just want to make that.
That's correct.
Excuse me, correct me if I'm wrong, but sooner or later, we're going to buy some buses, correct? One way or the other. We need to buy buses.
Yes,
And
sir.
also, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Chapman, you said a minute ago, if we had any money left over, we could use that to purchase either some or all of them. But that language has to be separated, is that what I'm hearing, is that what I'm understanding?
To have the flexibility to do that one day, it needs to be in there, yes. If you want to use bond money, yes, for this particular bond, yes.
Or if we wanted to use this bond money, it would not preclude us if we wanted to float a $2 million bond in 3 years to buy buses, we could do that.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and again, I just want y'all to know, I appreciate the feedback from what the community committees were. It was not meant to disappoint, and it was just a legal option, and it's nothing unusual. But I definitely thank you for letting us know, and y'all need to discuss that in terms of what's best for y'all.
Okay, board members, this agenda item is marked for action. Is there a motion to be considered? Ms. Hrabacek?
So correct me if I get this wrong.
I'll do my best.
You want me to, I think I know what you.
Well, I think we need to isolate the issue first, right? The bus language, or can we do it all at the same
Or make a
time?
motion without it in there. And he has the language if you would like to.
Yeah.
I appreciate the flexibility and can understand that need, but I got to go with the community on this one.
Yeah, I'm nervous to throw that, especially with the Dallas County stuff. I just had
Okay.
Dwayne Caraway getting that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Ready?
Let's go.
I move to adopt an order calling a bond election to be held by the Carrollton-Farmers Branch Independent School District in the amount of $350,935,000, and that order not to include the purchase of school buses.
Do I have a second? Ms. Derrick?
Do we need to?
Is there any
do we need to
discussion?
specify the date that this election, is that necessary? Okay.
Is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. And all those against, please raise your hand. With a vote of 6 in favor and 0 against, the motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, our next agenda item is number 7. Closed meeting is authorized under Texas Government Code, Section 55.074, Personnel Matters, and 55.076, Security Devices. Audience members are welcome to remain in the boardroom as board members recess and move into room number 150, the Executive Conference Room, for deliberations. The time is now 8:32 p.m. 9:15. There were no actions taken out of closed session. Yep. There we go. The board will now move to next agenda item number 9. Comments from board members regarding posted agenda items. Board members, do you have any comments you wish to make at this time? Ms. Hrabacek?
So I know I had some things to say about school buses tonight, but I do want to say that I saw for the first time this week a big yellow bus driving down the road with the words Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD on the side, and just an overwhelming sense of pride. So they look good. They look good.
Anyone else? Mr. Shackman?
In our consent agenda was the monthly process where we approve contracts and all that. And they're mostly not here, but Dr. Coleman, I think our board would very much like for you to communicate congratulations to all of our staff in human relations and personnel. You guys worked very hard this summer. Got a lot of hires done and all of that. And so please, from me, and I think that my colleagues would agree, please communicate our appreciation for a great job.
Thank you, I will.
Anyone else? Okay. Well, we've reached the end of our agenda, and we're adjourned at 9:17.